Hi, today we have an iPad motherboard, logic board, that has been destroyed by another repair company. If we take a look at this under the scope, we can see this socket here has been mashed up. And so has this socket here. This one's not so bad, but if we get a nice close-up of the socket itself, and zoom right in, you can see it's been damaged along those pins there. And what's going to happen is, I mean, that is just awful. But what's going to happen is when you plug in the digitizer, you're going to get random touching on the screen. There's just going to be ghost touching. And we don't want that, because that means your iPad will not work and it will probably lock itself out while you're using it. And that's no good. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these off the board and replace them with new. We do have to be careful because we've got plastic components around here. So we have to be careful with the amount of heat that we're using and make sure that we don't cause any further damage ourselves. Now, I haven't done this repair before with this heat gun, so I'm going to guess at the temperature I need to use. I think probably about 280. And we'll see if we can get these to come off the board nicely, and then we can replace them. First, I'm going to just put a bit of silver tape and some Kapton tape over this connector here, so that we don't want to melt it, basically. And we will melt it if we put too much heat into the board. So I've just picked up these scissors, which were on a heater over here. We don't want that on. So I'm just going to cover all of this side of the board. Now, once we apply heat, this silver tape is going to come off the board because it's not designed to stay sticky when it's hot. So what we'll do is we'll put some Kapton tape on top, and Kapton tape, which is this brown stuff, is designed to stay sticky even at a high temperature. This is rated for about 450 degrees if it's genuine Kapton tape. If it's not genuine Kapton tape, and I don't know whether this is, then it won't be quite as efficient as that. So that's going to ensure that our heat protector stays in position. So let's get some trusty flux. Just get that lined up nicely and hold it down with a weight. And get our trusty, what we believe to be Amtech flux. Okay, right, so I'm just going to put the heat gun up to about 380. I'm going to reduce the airflow to about 80% as well. 380. In fact, I'm going to reduce the airflow a bit more. So I want it to try and contain the heat around this component. Okay, it's starting to move. And what I basically want to do is just move it out of the way without tearing any pads. Like so. So that's the damaged socket. We're going to find the replacement socket. In fact, what I might do is take the other socket off at the same time. Just because the board is now nice and warm and it might be easier to get it off. Waiting for the flux to boil. Then we know we're getting up to temperature. Okay, get it out of the way. I've got to be really careful here because there are components nearby. Just going to lift that out of the way. Okay, perfect. So that's both the connectors off the board. And we're going to need to apply some leaded solder to the pads and then basically flow the new socket on top. I think we just need a bit more flux there. Okay, we'll give that a bit of a clean. Get some more flux. Now I'm going to actually melt the solder again so we get the best possible surface to adhere to. Because you can see there are some slight spikes on there and we want it to actually be a uniform kind of shape, the whole area that we're soldering to. And because it's leaded, it should melt at a lower temperature. You can see it's melting now. And then we're going to get a much better connection when we put the new socket on. Okay. So same again, except our airflow is too high. Just going to put some more flux on there as well. I've flipped it over, that's no good. Okay, right. I'm going to bring the airflow right down on this one. We're at about 50%. So this is going to take a bit longer. Okay, it's not easy to see whether that has flowed or not, but I believe it has. So we'll just give it a few seconds to cool down. And that looks good. So we'll just get a close-up of the connectors, the connections. Just move that back a bit so we get some light on it. So that like they flowed nicely. So we're going to do the same. Going to do the same with the other one. I just want to get a bit closer so I can see the solder more clearly. Let's just line the camera up. Okay, so get our soldering iron. Put new leaded solder on these pins. Now they're not flowing nicely because the board has cooled down quite a lot. So more flux. And we're just going to hold them on the board a bit longer. There we go. And again, more flux. Just going to take this solder off the board. Might be that the leaded solder and the unleaded solder are not very happy together. Give it a clean. Fresh flux. Okay, that looks good. So again, we're just going to heat these up so that they all melt and then become a uniform shape. There we go, they're melting now. Find our other connector. And we'll just give it a clean. Get the old flux off. And put some fresh flux in there. And position our socket. Okay. And again, about 50% airflow on this heat gun, because we don't want it to move, because that's a pain. There we go, and the solder's melting. Make sure we get all of those pins melted. Perfect. Let it cool down. And then we'll just double check, make sure we got some good connections in there. It's hard to see because my hand's not very steady, but they do look like good connections to me. And we'll just give it a clean. Then we'll take off our Captain tape, which you can see has stayed perfect the entire way through. And that has helped protect the plastic components that are soldered to the board. That means that we don't have to do any extra remedial work. You can see, look, the socket there is completely undamaged. Just do a little bit more cleanup around this area. Okay, let that dry. I'm going to go and reassemble this iPad now, and then hopefully show you it working afterwards and return it to the customer, who will be very happy that their iPad, which was broken, is now working. So I took the board downstairs and looked at the connectors under the microscope, and everything looked okay. So I reassembled the iPad, attempted to power it on, nothing. Brilliant. So what I discovered was everything here was under the silver tape, and these two capacitors here had become soldered together, so the solder between them, there was excess solder on them, and that had flowed and joined them. And then when I applied power, basically it wouldn't boot, but at the same time it blew the TriStar chip here. So I've replaced the TriStar chip, sorted out the solder joint here, and tested the TriStar chip again after replacing it, and now I get no TriStar errors. So I will now again reassemble the iPad completely and hopefully show you it fully working. Okay, finally, after much deliberation and extra work, this iPad that came in solely for the front glass to be replaced, that's the digitizer, is now working. The number of things that the other repair company did wrong is hideous and indicative of someone that lacks experience. They scratched the LCD. There are tool marks all over the LCD. They broke the home button. They damaged the FPC connectors on the logic board. Now the FPC connectors are very delicate, and when you plug in the new digitizer, you have to use feel to locate them. You have to use the feedback in your fingers, in your fingertips, to locate them correctly and then push them home. What these guys are doing is they're just smashing them down, and that's what damaged the port. It's just inexperience. I've been fixing iPads for 10 years. You know, I know how to fix these things inside out. So the moral of this story, if you want your device to last a normal lifetime, get it repaired at a reputable repair shop. Check them out, check their reviews. You might pay 10–15% more, but what you're doing by paying that money is, A, you're probably paying VAT, which means, you know, the company is a legitimate business that actually pays taxes. You're funding skilled employees. So you're helping a company survive that has got good staff. And you're going to save your device ultimately, because you're not going to risk it with a dodgy company that's just set up shop across the road and is £20 cheaper. Okay, so if you need anything repaired, use the mail-in form below, come into the shop if you're local, and we'll get your device repaired for you. And if you mail it in, we'll make a video about it and put it on YouTube for you. I hope you enjoyed that one. It was stupidly complicated. I'll see you in the next one.